Hey folks, welcome to another edition in the GT show. As always, I'm your host Glenn Twiddle, bringing you the answers to some of the questions you have asked of me. And you know what? I'm here, it's like 3 a.m. in New York City. I got jet lag, so I'm up at 3 a.m. Even here, I'm up early. Yesterday was just surreal within the offices of Gary Vaynerchuk. And I know that last week on the GT show, we dedicated really the whole show into how great this guy is. But it made me start thinking into the chain of events that led me up to some of the successes that I've had over the last year. And so really what I'm talking to you today is about speaking something into existence, or the law of attraction, or how we achieve goals. I know a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the weight loss goal. I'm on it. I'm hustling. June 30, the big the date that I've set. But I wanted to talk to you about speaking something into existence. How much talking do we do versus how much action? And I do think everyone's different. But it made me start thinking about how this particular event, hanging with Gary Vaynerchuk, now having him working with us on the promotion of this event that we're doing together, and bringing Gary Vaynerchuk down to Australia, how all those things came into place. Well, it started off years ago when Matt Steinway told me get a book by the name of Crush It, Gary's first book, and that I had to read it. But of course, I get a lot of recommendations to read books, and that always doesn't lead to me inviting that speaker down to Australia. But I really do think this is where it started. Last year, at the event with Sir Richard Branson, Matt Steinway jumps up on stage. And Matt and I had been talking about how good it would be to bring Gary to Australia when we've been chatting on the phone and things like that. And on stage, what Matt did is he said, well, let's cut to the footage. Here's what Matt Steinway said on stage in front of 1,000 people. Now, keep in mind, let me set the context here. We had done no contacting of Gary's people. We are not speaking about how much that would cost, whether Gary might be available, whether Gary might want to. I know there are some speakers, there are some people who refuse to take that 14-hour flight from LA, let alone if you're coming from New York, which Gary is, add another 5 hours, so that 20-hour each way, excluding layovers and things, so the better part of a 24-hour non-stop flight from wherever a speaker is to home. There are some speakers who won't do it. So that's the stage we were at when Matt said this, is we hadn't spoken to Gary. All we'd done is been a fan of his work, period. That's it. And here's what Matt said live in front of 1,000 people at that Sir Richard Branson event that we did, where we had Sir Richard Branson come and hang out with us. Here's what Matt said. Let me just cut to Matt for a moment.
4 people that I follow quite closely, and others, but these are probably 4 the main. Gary Vaynerchuk. If Glenn's going to bring Gary Vaynerchuk out, I think next year, if he comes, go and see that guy. Awesome.
So, as you can see, Matt put my foot in it. Matt put it out there for me. Matt didn't say, Twids is going to think about trying about where fans of maybe, Matt didn't say any of that sort of stuff. Matt actually didn't tell it as it is. Matt told it as it might be in the future. Matt put it out there. Matt spoke it into existence eventually. Matt said it as if it was already true. Twids is, however he worded it there, Twids is bringing Gary Vaynerchuk out next year. Not Twids is going to try, Twids is gonna, So now after that, and here's the critical bit where many people don't achieve their goals. After that, I took the steps. I took the actions. So really, I think the process is, do I believe that, yes, we need to speak something into existence? Yeah, because we've got this thing called a reticular activating system. It's part of our brain. I don't know how it works, but we've all felt its phenomenon. We hear a friend of ours is going to buy a new Tesla, for example. A perfect example. My man up in Northern Territory, Adam Hayes, has a Tesla. He got one of the first ones that was ever released. I'd never heard of a Tesla. I might have got, but I wasn't a Tesla fan by any means. In the last year, since I've known about what Teslas are, I see them everywhere. Now, the amount of Teslas in the world, there might be 0.00001% of cars that are Teslas. And yet I seem to see them everywhere. And were they there before? Well, actually they weren't, I suppose. But we've all had that phenomenon where someone is going to buy, or you are going to buy a particular car or a particular make of car or whatever, and then all of a sudden you see them everywhere. And the question is, were those cars there historically? Were they everywhere? And the answer is, well, they're still not everywhere. It's just that your reticular activating system is on the lookout for it. Hence, it sees those instances that justify its belief thing that there's those BMW cars, that they exist. Once our attention is drawn to the fact that something exists, we tend to then see it more often than we did beforehand. It's a natural phenomenon. And so, there's even been some studies. I don't know if you've seen that one. In fact, you know what? Let me throw you to this little study that shows where our attention goes when we're looking for something, how that phenomenon works. Let me throw to this little demo, and we'll talk to you in a minute about that.
How many passes does the team in white make?
Go!
The answer is 13. But did you see the moonwalking bear?
Go!
All right, now some of you might have seen that experiment before. If you have seen that experiment before, then of course you've got to think back to when you first saw it. But there is a huge, in fact, I'm going to ask you guys in the comments section, who didn't spot the gorilla? Who didn't spot it? Here is, the people passing the ball around. There's a big giant guy in a gorilla suit, doing that thing. And yet so many people on the first view through do not spot the gorilla because they're focused on counting the balls of the opposite color. It's an incredible kind of focus of attention demo. So have that in mind. We do want to put our goal, whatever that is, our promise, however we're going to word it. I know I've done some training on mindset where we don't call things goals anymore. We call them promises. Our promise is to get Gary Vaynerchuk out there. I mean, the problem is you've got to make sure that you're going to hustle to do that, but we put that out there into existence, and then the key. We get our reticular activating system activated on the target, on the prize, on the promise, on the goal, and then we just forget it and get to work. Believe me, I didn't sit there on a morningly basis reciting to myself, I'm going to get Gary Vaynerchuk out here. I'm going to get Gary Vaynerchuk. I didn't do that. I put it out there. I set the target. Matt made me publicly accountable. I think that's another key. I think you need to be accountable to someone. So in this case, Matt Steinwade threw me in the deep end and made me publicly accountable. And then we get to work on the action steps. In the case of Gary, it's find out how much it's contact him, find out if it's even possible, find out how much it's going to cost, decide whether that cost is justified, and even if it's not, and there's the thing, the fact that I'm a fan of Gary, there's something that could potentially get you, or it certainly can get me into trouble, is that I want to do it because I'm a fan of his. You know what I mean? Of course, working with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Richard Branson or whoever it's been, E.T., John McGrath over the years, I want to work with those guys even if it's not financially kind of justifiable. I don't care. I just like the guys so much. I want to work with them. So you want to keep all that in mind. But then that's a payoff as well. I mean, even if I don't financially do as great out of a deal and yet I enjoyed the process, well, that's remuneration. In fact, that's better than money. The experiences we have, we can't take the money with us, but those experiences we have for a lifetime. So, even the way we did the thing with Arnold, let me see if I can dig up some footage of, there was a period of time between when I wrote down that goal of have Arnold Schwarzenegger headline at an event of mine. I wrote it down twice as a target, as a goal, as an outcome, as a prize, as a promise, whatever word you want to use. And when it sort of got real, there was a period of time when I put it out there and I didn't know if it was going to happen. And then it all of a sudden started to get real. So let me just see if I can find in the archive and throw to some footage of that in-between time when I was just talking about it and I'd say it where I'm speaking it into existence. Let's see what we can find. Let me cut to that.
People have asked me, how do we get on stage at a Be Phenomenal or that sort of event? Remember how at the start of this I said, look for what these guys have in common. And I suppose I was just wanting us to do a little exercise in thinking about what they've got in common. Right, so, let's see. That's why. Okay, so, but the other point I want to make is I'm putting it out there, and about 3 days ago, maybe, actually I think it was Friday last week, so 7 days ago, I got an email where this thing that I was putting out there as a hypothetical, maybe 1 in 1,000 chance I could get that to happen, well the numbers have now gone from 1 in 1,000 to maybe 1 in 50. I'm still not out, not 100%, but I've got a number. My speaker next year, my headline speaker, has emailed me back a quote for how much it will cost. It scares me to death what that number is. But people have asked me, how do they share a stage with E.T., with Derek Thomas? That'd be phenomenal. How do you share? Well, here's who you're going to be sharing stage with, if I can make it happen. So this isn't a big announcement that it's on. This is a big announcement that they've emailed me a number that scares me, that I've made a mental decision that I'm going to make it happen. And that's who we're talking about. So for an 80s tragic like me, to even maybe be in discussions with Arnold Schwarzenegger to appear at an event next year, I'm crapping myself. I'm a combination of excited, scared to death, because it's more money than I used to make in 10 years that the fee is. So yeah, so that's the plan. You want to maybe potentially speak at events of mine with maybe potentially this, then implement this stuff and make yourself some cash, make me look, because believe me, people like Danelle and people like Chris and Tom, they make me look like a rock star because they give me credit as their coach, you know what I'm saying? So it's a contra deal. You make me look like a legend, you come and do this if it's what you want to do. You know what I mean? Some people don't want to do it, that's cool. But anyway, I just want to let you guys know that, you know, that I'm excited and scared to death. Because I only just got the announcement. This isn't, nothing's official. The venue's booked and we're talking. So if it doesn't happen, hey, I have a crack. But if it does happen, mate, for an 80s tosser like me, I'm loving it.
So as you can see, I'm throwing it out there well in advance of having any real justification as to whether or not that can happen. You know, I'm not making any firm promises. I'm not telling you, yep, I've done it, I've booked him, when I haven't, but I am kind of putting myself out there to have these things achieved. But then the main thing is, guys, it's not the just putting it out there. You can't just put the goal out there and then think, at least this is my opinion. Now, there's great debate about this going on throughout the world, but you're watching the GT show, so you get GT's opinion on it. In my opinion, the universe doesn't then conspire to deliver Arnold Schwarzenegger to me, to deliver Gary Vaynerchuk to me, Richard Branson, whatever my target might be. The universe ain't going to conspire to do it for me. I've then got to go do the work. I've got to take the steps to make the calls, to do the negotiations, to find the money to fund it. I've got to make that happen. So I do believe the mindset stuff is important, the putting of it out there, the thinking it into existence, the speaking it into existence. But it cannot stop there. You know, it cannot be like, you know, now again, I'm pretty sure they just mess this up in the edit of The Secret. But in The Secret, they think that the vibration of the universe delivers these targets to you. That happens to be not my opinion. My opinion is it's not the universe that delivers it to me. It's not magic that delivers it to me. It's my efforts, my actions, my behaviors. And the one thing that is a bit magical or mystical or whatever is the fact that we have an unconscious mind, the fact that we have this reticular activating system, this stuff in our brain that's all working behind the scenes, not within our conscious kind of, control. There are things like, you know, when you think about a smoker, who lifts a cigarette to their lips knowing I shouldn't be doing this, I shouldn't be doing this. I tell you, for me historically, when I would be hungry and I'd be on the way home, there's nothing else open, there's Hungry Jack's, I would go through the drive-through knowing it's about, this is a horrible idea, I should not be doing this, and then I order, give us a double Whopper with cheese, thanks. You know, how our brains make these things is incredible, but sometimes our brains act in methods at an unconscious level that don't necessarily serve us, or in this case, that do serve us. So I do believe that that mental stuff, that putting it out there, that speaking into existence, that making yourself public accountable, I do believe that all of that stuff is programming that unconscious, those unconscious patterns of behavior, like the unconscious, behaviors of a smoker, of an overeater, of all of those things. I do believe that that's where the speaking of it into existence, the putting yourself, the making you accountable, what Matt Steinway did to me, throwing me under the bus. I'm just kidding, Matty, I love you, man. But how can I not love him when what Matt did then, throwing me out there, putting me out there, making me publicly accountable, resulted in what's happened in the last 24 hours, hanging out here in New York City with Gary Vaynerchuk in his offices. You've seen on Facebook, you've seen it, there's a bunch of stuff over the last couple of weeks where people have been interacting, people have been saying how great it would be to meet Gary. He's massively, his brand is blowing up right now as we speak, and I've been a part of it. I'm on the show there, and it's all because Matt started something, and then I took the actions commensurate with having achieved these incredible things. So, look, there's some thinking on how all of that works. Just some musings. I don't know that I'm right. All I know that it's right for me. It's working great in my area. So, the crux of it all is speak it into existence. Put it there. Write it down. However that is for you that's going to work. Whether you speak it, whether you write it, whether you say it, whether you look at those goals every day in the shower. Whatever that happens to be for you, to get that goal out there and into you, but the main thing, then get to work. My man E.T., Eric Thomas, he says, then get in the lab, right? Now, what that means is get in the lab, is get into the place of work where the magic happens and make it happen. So for us in real estate, of course, that's rubber on the road. That's he who generates the most appointments wins. So that's what the lab is there, is your marketplace, is meeting the people. I'm quoting Tom Panos there. Who generates the most appointments in real estate wins. Full stop, period, end of story. So that's the lab for you guys. Or whatever industry you happen to be in. Speak it, say it, do it, get it out there, then get to work. That's real. I could have done this whole rant with two things. Set a goal and get to work. I hope the rant, though, has been helpful in showing you some examples of how it's worked for me. And I'd love to hear how that thinking has worked for you. So in the comments section below, I'd love to hear your thoughts on how this law of attraction thing has worked for you, what you've achieved. Be awesome to hear your take on this and add to the discussion. So, on that note, another edition in the GT Show in the can. Thank you for listening. I hope it's been of some interest to you. And until next time, guys, live from New York, we're signing out. Bye for now.